Hi, this is Joycelyn. I'm the Managing Director of Geek School Tutoring. So today I have a treat. I've decided to do a live marking of a creative writing essay so that you can see some of the things that the examiners would be looking for when marking for the 11 plus, the stage 2 for grammar or stage 1 for boroughs like Medway, and in particular for the independent, the private schools. So the aim of this video is to show you some of the things to look out for and to see how an examiner would likely mark a paper, and it will help children have an idea of, you know, some of the level, the standard of writing that some children are producing, which is very motivating. So I hope you enjoy this video. I haven't done anything like this before, but I think it'd be very, very helpful, and enjoy. So let's look at this piece of writing. It's a persuasive piece of writing, and on first glance I can see that you've managed to go over a page, which is fantastic, and the handwriting is very neat and easy to read, and that's brilliant. And the cursive is actually done quite well, which is great. So looking at the second page where it's zoomed in a bit more, presentation is lovely and it's very neat. So let's go into the marking now. So one thing to remember is that your title should be in title case, and so where the bits that I've underlined, these should be in capitals. So YU should be a capital, S for shouldn't should be a capital S, O for own should be a capital S, and D for dog should be a capital S. Words like a, the, it, for example, articles are kept in lowercase. So you can notice that, like with this A, I haven't underlined it for capitalization. So let's get to reading. If you want to own a dog, well, think twice before you make a decision, as people often don't think about the responsibilities that come with owning a dog. Okay, so the introduction is fine, just a few spelling mistakes. So if you want to own a dog, we'd put a comma there because it's a fronted adverbial. I would get rid of the well, because it's not really doing much. So if you want to own a dog, think twice before you make a decision. As people, so you can see there's a natural pause there. So we could put a comma. As people often don't think about the responsibilities that come with owning a dog. So I wouldn't put owning a dog again because you've already got it at the top there. Instead, I would change it to owning one. Let's get the writing a bit clearer. For example, my uncle once saw a dog online, and out of the blue, and so out of the blue is a subordinate clause, it's secondary clause, extra information. So we should put that phrase in, that clause in parenthesis, and because you've used the comma, we'll continue with that. So again, for example, my uncle once saw a dog online and out of the blue bought it, but didn't think about the consequences. Good, I like that. Basically, he thought how cute, fluffy and adorable the dog was. However, so I would stop there so that you've got enough breath and you're not saying too much in one sentence. So, however, should have a comma. He didn't place a second thought on how to take care of it. Lovely. After day one, there was a damp, wet puddle that shimmered in the light. comma, which floated on the floor, not to mention piles of steering poo. Not sure what steering means there. Steering poo that littered the beds. Okay, let's go back. So we have gone beyond your uncle thinking about having a dog to him actually buying one. There should be a new paragraph where you start with after day one, because he's obviously now bought the dog, and then we're going into his experience of having the dog. So after day one, there was a damp, wet puddle that shimmered in the light. I would put a semicolon and then change which to it. It floated on the floor, and put a full stop. Then you could change that not to mention to let's not mention, and then add there the piles, you've got piles there, of steering poo. So let's talk about that. Steering poo that littered the beds. So not sure why steering is being used here. So I would change that to something else. Maybe you're describing the smell or something else, but that is a bit confusing. I wouldn't use poo. We try and use formal language. So you could use excrement, which is another way of saying poo or the number one. And then you've got, so that was a lesson taught to my uncle. Okay, that's fine. Also, there are many reasons why not to own a dog. So there are many reasons why we should not own a dog, or many reasons not to own a dog. Just simply that. One reason of the many, okay, so you've used a parenthesis, for not owning a dog. So we don't need to repeat that because you've already mentioned the not owning a dog here. So be careful not to repeat phrases again. One reason of the many is that it gets its filthy or clean hair everywhere in the whole house. All right, let's stop there for a second. And we will look at gets and its. So gets is just the verb. There's no reason to have the apostrophe. And this its should be without the apostrophe. So this its is a pronoun. It's with an apostrophe really means it is, and it's a contraction. So a good test to see which one you should use is when you read the sentence again, replace the it's with it is and see if it makes sense. So for example, one reason of the many is it is filthy. So that wouldn't work. So then you know you don't need to use an apostrophe. So it gets its filthy or clean hair everywhere in the whole house. Take this as an example. You nestle under the blankets, ready for bed, but there's a lumpy feeling on your back. So you turn over, still lumps everywhere. You then take a lump, but it's dog hair. Okay, let's unpack that a bit. So, take this for example. You would replace that with a colon because you're about to explain something. So it's like making a statement as well. You nestle under the blankets, comma, ready for bed. So that's a subordinate clause. But there's a lumpy feeling on your back, full stop. So you turn over and there are still lumps everywhere. You then take a lump, but it's dog hair. It is dog hair, so that it is correct. The one thing that I would say though is your apostrophe needs to come right up to the top of the letter, because it's in the wrong position there. So, and it's the same for the others, but it's not as obviously misplaced as in this line here. Okay. Moving on from physical aspects, so we need a the. From the physical aspects of what? So of owning a dog. Of owning a dog, comma. New dogs bark all night long, keeping you awake. I remember when my neighbour got a dog. It began like this. So again, colon. I've always thought that pigeons crowing outside my window were horrible, comma, until I heard a dog next door yapping away at night. Lovely. Would this night ever end for me? Okay, so because it's in the past tense, you need to explain and position this properly. So something like, I remember thinking, sorry, I'm using the Apple Pencil and it's got an interesting way of showing my handwriting, but we'll just work with that. I remember thinking, and then you could change the would. Will this night ever end for me? You know, and you need to explain a bit more. Something along the lines of, I would spend hours laying awake trying to get some peace and quiet to sleep, but, you know, it just didn't work out. You know, just explain a bit more. I do like that. One thing that I will say, though, is that you started talking about your uncle. And then you added here that also there are many reasons not to own a dog. Filthy dog hair everywhere. But then you then move on to the physical aspects. New dogs bark all night. So you're leading the reader very nicely, which is good practice. Okay, lovely. So let's go on. So hopefully I've persuaded you to think twice, or even not want to own a dog anymore. You're saying too much in that. So I would break it down. So hopefully I've persuaded you to think twice about getting a dog. Full stop. And then you could add there, after the full stop, maybe you have decided against owning one at all. And you can end that with a full stop or an exclamation mark. Place good thought into my article and consider carefully, so be careful, no pun intended with carefully, whether to own a dog or not. Also, if you choose to get a dog, it's at your own risk. Okay, so place good thought into my article. I would say place good thought into place good thought into place good thought about the points I have made and consider carefully whether to own a dog or not. Good. Let's get rid of the also. If you choose to get a dog, remember that it's at your own risk. I really like this because you've kept it quite simple. You started with personal experience on the first page, and then you've given some factual, dog hairs, and then the barking, and then you have you've concluded. The one thing that is missing is giving a balance. So whenever you write a descriptive writing piece, think of it as two people or two objects being on the seesaw. If there isn't the right balance, one side will weigh the other. That doesn't mean, and that's something that I'm seeing in this writing, although you've explained everything very, very well and clearly, you need to think about what a dog lover would say. What are the benefits of having a dog? So, for example, where you talk about the barking and it keeps neighbours at night, you could balance it by saying, however, well-trained dogs are often very quiet and only bark if there's an unusual noise or an intruder, which can be quite helpful, How about the dog hairs? Perhaps dogs who are trained not to go onto their owners' beds are an option, or, some other remedy. You could say that dog hairs being everywhere around the house increases the housework because the owners have to do a lot of cleaning and vacuuming to get rid of the dog hairs. But it's just like any other chore around the house, dust coming into the house or debris from our shoes and other examples like that, which still require cleaning. Something like that to give a balanced view, you see. And then about your uncle, where the dog, the puppy or the dog basically wasn't trained yet and it was causing excrement and so on to be left all over the house. One remedy against this is to train the dog or the puppy as soon as possible so that it knows where to do its business, so a balanced view. So we should have had a quote in there, but I've put one in there, I remember thinking, and then we turned that into a quote. So remember that. I'm just trying to think about whether you used any figurative language. Let's see. So he didn't place a second thought. Was a nice phrase. I don't remember seeing one, because I think I would have mentioned. So you need to be careful. So with the figurative language, you know that you need to use similes, metaphors, onomatopoeia, alliteration. One of them is enough. Don't litter your writing with lots and lots of it, because it's an unnatural way to write, and it will look as if you've been told to add that in, and you're just adding value and quality to your writing. You're not trying to be robotic in your writing. You also need to just be careful with the colon. So it's if you use a semicolon and you write a list, just be mindful that actually the first intro to that should be with a colon. Don't just go into a list with semicolons breaking up the list. So take this as an example. You nestle under the blankets, ready for bed, but there's, that should have had a colon, even though it's not a list. You're demonstrating an understanding of colon use and so on. So I've really enjoyed this. I think it's a much improved piece of writing, and it's just getting better and better, which is fantastic to see. Be careful to use words that are number one, it definitely fits into the context of your writing. So piles of steering poo, I'd be careful with using a phrase like that, because it doesn't quite fit. And well done. So in terms of grading, because there were a few spelling mistakes, so generally they take about 5 marks off for spelling, punctuation and grammar. That's one spelling mistake, another one there, and I think carefully is a third one, and then this steering poo, I'd probably knock off about 4 points. And the fact that we didn't quite get the balanced view in your argument, even though you clearly explained your points, and they were well written and the description of them was quite good. Because there wasn't really a balanced view, clearly you're not a fan of dog owning, or at least for this piece of writing it comes out. So we'd need to look at that. So I would give it a 15 out of 20. I would have liked to give a bit more, because what you've written is good, but the spelling mistakes, the punctuation and the balance, so you're looking at about 75% for this, which is good. In your next piece, aim to give that sort of balance so that you can get maximum scores. And when you're checking your work, which you need to, and I can see that you clearly have, because there's insertions and things like that. When you're checking, make sure you read slowly. So, for example, if you want to own a dog, you see how slow that pace is. Instead of, if you want to own a dog, which is quite fast and wouldn't enable you to pick up on mistakes, because what happens is you're reading too fast to see any mistakes, and when you read at that pace, you almost decide on what the word will be, so you're not actually looking at what's on the page clearly. So well done, and I look forward to the next one. Thanks for watching. Do you need help with your writing? Don't forget to check out Geek School Tutoring's online writing courses at www.geekschooltutoring.com. the 11plusessay.co.uk. We have everything from creative writing courses to English comprehension courses and English grammar and punctuation courses, just to name a few. Remember to like, comment and subscribe to our channel and to switch on your notifications so you know when our next video goes up. Bye. Collins,